Plenty has happened since Good Morning Transfers, particularly at Manchester United. We've got lots to get through with the transfer team. Ade Oladipo joined us for the first time. Welcome, Ade, and Arsenal supporter and broadcaster Nicole Holliday is with us as well. Welcome to you, Nicole, as well. As ever, we want to hear from you. Tweet the show at Sky Sports News. Use the hashtag TransferTalk. Right, we're going to start with Manchester United, though. We're going to head straight there and talk about Ashley Young in a moment with the transfer team. But we're going to head to Manchester and join our reporter, James Cooper. And James, you've got some information about Christian Eriksen.
Yeah, I think it's information that's probably going to disappoint a lot of Manchester United fans who hoped he might wear the famous red shirt. That's not going to happen. Manchester United are not pursuing Christian Eriksen. There have been reports about a bid of £20 million. They have made no bid. They've ruled out making a bid for the player. And as far as they're concerned, that's over and done with. I think there were discussions in the summer. I think at that stage, Manchester United made very clear that Christian Eriksen had ideas of going to other clubs and that they weren't in the running for him then. They, I think, have looked at the situation again and, again, been told, certainly their feeling is that Spurs don't want to do business with Premier League rivals. Certainly that's what sources close to Manchester United are telling me. So that's kind of done and dusted in many ways. Christian Eriksen, they think, is heading off to Europe with the favourites to get him being Inter Milan. So as far as Manchester United are concerned, Christian Eriksen doesn't come this January or ever. And I think, you know, that will disappoint some, bearing in mind, I think he's the sort of perfect player, profile-wise and ability-wise, that Manchester United are probably looking for at the moment. He doesn't fit kind of the age DNA or portfolio for that. And I think that's a major question mark against him. But I think, as I say, when Manchester United are scratching around for creative midfielders, any sort of midfielders, in the midst of an injury crisis off the back of that first-half performance against Manchester City, then maybe it's bad news all round that Christian Eriksen won't be coming to Old Trafford.
James, thank you. Right, OK, so let's talk about this with the transfer team. And Ade, is it any surprise that Jose Mourinho or Tottenham don't want to sell Eriksen to a rival?
Understandably so. You do believe it's more a case of Tottenham saying they're not going to sell him to United rather than United saying we don't want to sign him. You look at what kind of player he is and what player he's been for Tottenham the last sort of few seasons. He's exactly what United need. He's that creative ball player midfielder. With Pogba out injured as well, he's a player that could come in and kind of do that Pogba role, if you like, drop into that midfield. But you can understand where Tottenham and Jose Mourinho are saying absolutely not to a rival. I mean, there's only 1 point that separates them in the Champions League race as well. They're 5th and 6th respectively. So it doesn't make sense if you're a United team, I think, or a United fan hearing that news, but it makes sense if you're Tottenham. You do not want to sell him to Manchester United.
And Dave, we don't know where Eriksen wants to go, or even if he wants to go for certain, right? But let's say he does want to go to Manchester United and he can go for free in the summer. From a business point of view, why not cash in now?
I think that's the decision that they would need to weigh up at Tottenham, the footballing decision and the financial decision. It's a bit of a U-turn, really, from Daniel Levy, because before Christmas he gave an interview to The Standard in which he said they weren't scared of selling Christian Eriksen to a domestic rival, which says now that he's changed his mind a little bit on that, perhaps given the Christmas fixtures and how they've worked out for Tottenham and Manchester United, and the fact that Champions League football, there's going to be a real fight on their hands to get into that top 4 towards the end of this season. So from a Tottenham's point of view, they need to weigh up actually keeping Christian Eriksen. Is that going to be the best for us on a footballing wise? Is having him around the squad going to help us get into that Champions League? Or would it be better then for them to say, no, let's just get the player out now and get some money in, because we're not going to get anything for him in the summer? Yeah,
potentially Jose Mourinho has changed Daniel Levy's mind since doing that interview. Emma, because there had been reports of Inter Milan's interest.
Yeah, well, we
of course, that's different, isn't it, when they're foreign?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it earlier this week, that their chief executive had come out and said, we're interested in signing this player. We know for a fact Christian Eriksen, he said in the summer he wants a new challenge. He clearly wants success, and you've got to argue Inter Milan are probably going to achieve that this season. They're top of Serie A at the moment. Yeah, there's a great title race going on, so another reason he'd probably want to go, as the level on points with Juventus at the moment. Whether it's the same challenge as Real Madrid, which is probably what he was looking at in the summer, but Inter Milan is probably a good bet for him. And, you know, personally, I can't see him staying at Spurs. I think he's pushing for a move out of the club in this January transfer window.
But Nicole, as an Arsenal fan, you probably don't sympathise with Tottenham, but this situation is something that you are, used to. It has happened a bit at Arsenal the last few years. So what do you make of this?
I mean, look, for me as well, I think when it gets to the point where a player quite clearly doesn't really want to be at the club anymore, then you kind of don't want them there as a fan, because I think Tottenham Hotspur fans would agree that Eriksen hasn't been as good as we've seen him be in the past sort of few months in particular. And we saw it at Arsenal with Aaron Ramsey, and that was so frustrating because he was a great player for us. And then, of course, he went for free. And, it is a really annoying situation to be in. But at the end of the day, if they can get money for him now, why wouldn't you? Why would you wait?
So that's Manchester United's pursuit of Christian Eriksen over for now anyway. We're going to talk to about Ashley Young now, because yes, they reported that Inter Milan were interested, but there has been a development, Dave.
Well, yes, Manchester United have offered Ashley Young a one-year contract extension to stay at Old Trafford. Obviously, you mentioned there the interest from Inter Milan and Antonio Conte. He's looking for a left-sided player, and Emma mentioned it there, they're top of Serie A at the moment, looking for that Scudetto title. Young's current deal expires this summer, which means he is now at the moment free to talk to foreign clubs about a potential deal. The offer on the table from Inter Milan is an 18-month contract, and we spoke about this yesterday about, those length of deals don't often come along for a player who's 34 years of age. Conte is a big fan of him, wanted to sign him in the summer of 2017 when he was in charge of Chelsea, so he's a player that he's looked at for a long time. We know the formation that Conte wants to play, likes three at the back, and sees Ashley Young as part of his left-sided wing-back role. And it's understood Conte is willing to offer that 18-month deal for Ashley Young, and who knows, he could end up going there and winning the title within 5 months.
I mean, and Ashley Young's situation, we talked about it a lot yesterday, and we're on it again today, Emma. Will this be seen as good news for Manchester United?
Well, I don't know if a lot of United fans would agree, but I'm going to say yes. First of all, they cannot afford to let players go. That's the bottom line. They've got a really thin squad as it is. There are players that were allowed to leave previously and they haven't been replaced, the likes of Ander Herrera, Maran Fellaini, Romelu Lukaku, of course. Injuries as well means that they're even more depleted. Now you look at the bench against Manchester City, obviously they were missing Paul Pogba, Scott McTominay, Harry Maguire, another one. Anthony Martial didn't start. So, he's probably turning around looking at his bench when he's playing against Manchester City. I mean, he's got the likes of Matic, Mata. You've got Pep Guardiola next door, turning around and he's got Aguero, Jesus, David Silva on the bench. So, first of all, they cannot let players leave. Second of all, it's all about experience. Ashley Young's been at Manchester United for the best part of a decade now. I think he's a second longest-serving player after Chris Smalling. So when you've got a young side, you need either an experienced manager or experienced players around you.
Obviously, we don't know how long these negotiations have been ongoing with Ashley Young from the Manchester United point of view in terms of whether or how long ago this contract was offered to Ashley Young. But you wonder the timing of this news coming out from the United end anyway, whether they have been prompted a little bit by this interest from Inter Milan.
Yeah, which happens so often. Ade, would he have to, let's say he does stay at Manchester United, at this stage, when you look at the full-backs, which is where he seems to be now rather than a winger, would he have to accept that he's a squad player?
I think he kind of already accepts that. He knows he's probably going to be covered for Wan-Bissaka, right back, maybe cover left back as well. He can play in the forward positions as well. I'm going to kind of echo what Emma said. I think it's important that they keep the experience in that team. A lot of experience went in the summer. You talk of Fellaini went, Sanchez, Lukaku, and you look at the team he's trying to do that project now. It's a young team he's trying to create right now, and I think they need that experience in that squad. They talk about Man United not having sort of leaders, captains around. He is the club captain. He's a leader on that pitch as well. So I think aside from the footballing side, I think someone like him in the changing room is important as well.
But shouldn't Manchester United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer be trying to rebuild? Wasn't that, I think United fans are quite frustrated with this from what I saw on Twitter. The responses were quite funny, actually. A lot of fans were a bit like, what is going on? Why would you offer him a year contract to stay? I think, I get the argument that obviously he's a more mature player. He obviously brings something to the team and in the dressing room as well, I guess. Yeah. But come on, they kind of need to change things massively at Manchester United.
But Dave, they have though already. Sorry, Tom. You think they have though? Wan-Bissaka coming in, James coming in, Maguire coming in. But I think you can't change everything at that back. You need to keep some experience, and I think that's where he comes in. And again, he can play cover at both right or left back. And I think you can't sort of. It would be silly to let him go. Yes, you want to rebuild, but you don't want to wholesale changes. What United did in the summer, which was very bad, is letting so much experience go. They need to keep some experience back.
That's the point that you made, didn't you, about the appearances as a captain yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer made the point as well. We read the quotes when he signed his new contract, Ashley Young, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said, we really value his leadership in the dressing room. I mean, I probably wouldn't go as far as to say it'd be silly to let him go in this January window. But the job at Manchester United isn't a one-window job. It's not a two-transfer window job. This is a 4 to 5 transfer window job. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is fully aware of that, and probably the Manchester United hierarchy are fully aware of that. So to say that United can just get rid of 4 or 5 players in one window, it's very difficult to do that. So does Ashley Young represent what's gone before and perhaps a period of time that hasn't been so successful? Manchester United fans may argue that that's the case, but then does he want to change a lot, particularly this experience that he's got? Does he want to change that in this window?
Does it make more sense then for Manchester United to say he's not going anywhere now, but you can go at the end of your contract in the summer? Because let's say he does sign a new contract, it's not like he's going to be worth, you know, £20 million. So why not keep that experience for now and then look into the summer to replace him then?
There's definitely a logic to that argument for sure, I would say. But then, if you're going to do that, have you got a player who's mentally in the game if he knows he's leaving at the end of the season? I mean, you would never want to question the professionalism of someone like Ashley Young, but it's natural as a human being to be thinking about your next move if he wants to keep playing.
Yeah, and he was, of course, at the Euros with England 18 months ago. Nicole, when you were, I mean, with Arsenal, sometimes there's a criticism of a lack of leaders there.
Yeah.
So I guess Manchester United are probably thinking, well, actually, we need to keep some of ours, thinking of that reason.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point, because you need that in a squad, and I think that is exactly what Arsenal have been lacking over the past couple of years, you'd argue. And I think that's kind of maybe what we're now finding in Aubameyang, and just generally the team are looking better. But it is important, if he is quite a key figure within the dressing room and a leader, that I guess he stays. But I just think, I don't know, I think they need to make a lot of changes at United. Maybe now isn't.
You just don't like him.
I don't dislike him. I'm sure he's a lovely fella, but I think they need to change a lot there. And I think Manchester United fans are quite frustrated.
Well, there are loads of other transfer stories going around. Here's Emma to round up a few in State of Play.
Yes, West Ham have made a revised offer for Benfica midfielder Gedson Fernandes. We understand that is an 18-month loan with no option or obligation to buy. Borussia Dortmund have joined the list of clubs who are keen to sign Norwich right-back Max Aarons. Bournemouth have had no approaches or formal bids for Jordan Ibe as of yet, despite reported interest from Crystal Palace. Brentford are interested in signing Turkey forward Emre Moore. Hull City and Luton Town are among the Championship clubs looking at Devontae Cole. And Sunderland are set to offer Carl Lafferty a return to English football. The Northern Ireland international was shown around the Stadium of Light and training facilities on Tuesday and is set to open talks with the League One club.
Right, so much to come, and we're going to be talking to Nicole about her club, Arsenal, and potential incomings next.
Yes, welcome back and into one of our newest segments here on Transfer Talk, influencing you, of course. And our guest today is Nicole, massive Arsenal fan, big influencer yourself. Nicole, first of all, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I like the little dance.
Oh, come on, man.
Not awkward at all.
You got a whoa? Look, I know you're a massive Arsenal fan. You would have been looking at the transfer activity they did last summer. First of all, how do you review some of those signings? I mean, you think about Nicolas Pepe, David Luiz came in, Kieran Tierney as well. What's your thoughts?
I mean, Kieran Tierney's been a bit of a frustrating one because he's now injured. David Luiz. He was, do you know what? He was one of those where I think everyone was quite sceptical and, you know, he received quite a bit of hate, I would say, about it. I think
Came with a lot of scrutiny.
Yeah, he did. And to be fair, at the start, when he first came, at the start of the season, didn't think he was fantastic. But the past few games...
I love the honesty.
I know, but you've got to be honest, haven't you? And the past few games, he's been good. He's actually looked pretty good, and I felt quite comfortable watching him. I think that's the problem with David Luiz. It is sometimes you do feel a bit on edge, and when defensively we were already struggling quite a lot, we kind of had enough defenders that did make you feel a bit on edge, really, watching them. You know, bringing him in, you did question it a little bit, but he's looking good. Pepe, he has, and do you know what? Again, he looks like he's getting more comfortable. He's getting there. I think he needed a bit of time, but people don't like to give players time, especially when they've come for so much money. And I think that's the problem, is they come with such high expectations.
So has the fee affected his performances, you think?
Oh, maybe. Look, it's going to be quite hard, isn't it, when you're going somewhere new and there's a lot of pressure on you and people are expecting big things. And I know people talk about it a lot, but I do think he obviously needed a bit of time to settle in. And I think he's also getting there. I think generally, though, as a team, as a squad, they're looking better, they're feeling more confident, and that's probably helping all of those players.
As we reported earlier in the window, obviously, Arsenal have been linked with Jerome Boateng. There's obviously been some interest there, potentially on a short-term deal. What would you feel? How would you feel about that deal coming and Jerome Boateng being an Arsenal player?
I mean, do you know what? If I'm completely honest, I'm not exactly sure where I'm at with it yet. I don't quite know how I feel, because he's, 31 years old. Look, don't get me wrong, that's not super old, but is he the player that won the World Cup? Is he that player? No, he's. Oh, do you think that's a bit harsh?
Listen to me. This is your platform.
We can have a fight.
I'm just asking you, as a World Cup winner, as someone who's won everything domestically.
I know, but I think he's not been playing as much. Quite injury prone as well. You know, he would probably also take time to settle in as well. And right now, because of the injuries, I mean, we've now got Callum Chambers out, Kieran Tierney's been out, Rob Holding's back, but, you know, I think he still needs to get back into the swing of things. Hector Bellerin's out.
Are you talking yourself into the signing?
Do you know what? It sounds like I am, doesn't it? Well, but this is what I mean. I'm undecided. Do I think he's necessarily the right player? No, but we clearly need someone, because, you know, we've got Ainsley Maitland-Niles playing at right back, which isn't his position. He'll be the first one to say that. And do you know what? He's doing pretty well in it, actually, to be fair to him. Saka's playing left back. Again, not his position, but he's doing well. But if any of those guys take a knock now and we have another injury, then who do we get in then? Are we going to shove Aubameyang in that position? Do you know what I mean? It gets to the point where you're like, how many players are going to get injured, and then you've got no replacement. So I think we need to make a signing. Obviously, Saliba's coming in after the summer, but right now we do need someone for the rest of the season. But do I think Boateng's the right guy?
Talking of long-term futures, Granit Xhaka has obviously been one that's been discussed.
Yeah.
Was he leaving? Potentially now staying? What's your views on it? Would you actually like Arsenal to strengthen in that midfield if Granit Xhaka does depart?
If he left, then yeah, I think we would need to get someone else in. Right now, I'm happy with our midfielders. I think they are pretty strong. I think Torreira's brilliant. I think Guendouzi's been great. But then it's an if, and I don't think Arteta's been quite clear recently that Xhaka, he doesn't see him going anywhere. And I think, look, we all know what happened, 2 months ago now, maybe, with Xhaka, with Arsenal. And as a fan, it was a tough time. It wasn't a nice time at all. It was a pretty bad atmosphere. but he's doing well. He's kind of got, look, he can make silly challenges, he can be a bit reckless, and we all know that of Xhaka. But I do think he's got something there. I think he is a good part of the team. And look, I'm not going to keep going on about it, but when that all happened and the whole thing with the captaincy, and a lot of Arsenal fans were angry about how that was decided in the first place. But look, leaving it up to the players to decide amongst themselves, probably not the right way to go about it. However, clearly he is highly respected amongst the players and in that dressing room, and that also counts for something. So I'd like him to stay. I think as fans, I mean, I can only speak for myself really, but as fans, I think we're kind of over what happened with Granit Xhaka, and I think he's proving himself now. And you know, he works hard as well, and he's put it behind him as well. So I think he will stay now with Arteta. If it was Unai Emery, different story. This would be a whole different segment.
We'll call this half-time.
Nicole, just stay there for now. We've got some breaking news. You can see it on the bottom of your screen. We've just had a long chat, haven't we, about Ashley Young and possibly signing a new contract at Manchester United. Well, according to Sky in Italy, Ashley Young has turned down that contract extension offer from Manchester United, and it now looks increasingly likely he will leave Old Trafford this month. All right, we talked about whether it might be in the summer on a free or whether he'd sign that new contract. He's turned that down, according to Sky in Italy, and now we're told he's likely to leave this month. So, Ade and Emma, I think this is a story that's moving so quickly, isn't it? And I must admit, I wasn't expecting that.
Nor was I. I just said earlier on in the show that he should stay, and now obviously it looks like he's going. You can understand if he's only been offered a 12-month contract with United, he's 35 in July. Inter Milan have offered an 18-month contract. You can understand why he would want to take that 18-month contract instead. But for United, it doesn't look good with players turning down contracts. That's the issue with United.
One of your senior players as well.
Yeah.
Because
Why
he's
would you
obviously
not want to
saying,
stay?
you know, he's been in talks with Inter Milan. This is obviously a message that he wants to go and play at Inter Milan. And, you know, he was saying about the experience as well. You've only got David De Gea and Phil Jones left at the club in terms of experienced senior players at the club with a very young side. So losing him for Manchester United's not good if he has turned down that contract.
Well, Dave, something that you brought up was that Ashley Young could go to Inter Milan this season and possibly win Serie A. All right, win a trophy straight away. Now, Manchester United could still win things this season, but they're not going to win the title. Could that have a factor in this?
Absolutely, no doubt. You know, players want to win trophies, and Ashley Young is coming towards the end of his career, so there's absolutely no doubt that he would have to consider what he could win at Inter Milan, and they haven't won the title there since 2010, I think.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, you know, Inter Milan are a massive, massive club with such great history, and you know, United fans would argue that they're not on the same level as Manchester United, who are obviously one of the biggest clubs in the world. But let's not forget, Inter Milan are still a huge club, and he will be thinking about winning things there.
And plus, I mean, do you want to stay at United and stay on the bench? Because that's really what they're promising, aren't they? They're saying you're going to be a squad player. That's what he's going to be at United. Whereas at Inter Milan, there's a good chance he'll start as well. So, I mean, if you're 34, do you want to be on the bench at 34 and being promised to be on the bench for the next year? Or do you want to go into Milan, start, maybe win a Scudetto, and then obviously try something new as well? I think I can understand why he's decided.
And we've talked quite a bit about Chris Smalling being over in Italy as well, at Roma, so he's obviously, you know, they're good friends, aren't they? So he's probably spoken to him quite a bit.
And Inter Milan do play with wing-backs as well, which is what Ashley Young was doing at the World Cup in 2018. All right, Manchester United fans, get in touch. Hashtag Transfer Talk at Sky Sports News. We want to hear from you about this Ashley Young news. But the breaking news is that, according to Sky in Italy, he's turned down that offer of a contract extension at Old Trafford. Also, don't forget to download the latest Transfer Talk podcast, available on iTunes, Spreaker and the Sky Sports website. Next, Leroy Sané. We thought he might be leaving Manchester City in the summer, maybe even this month. We take a closer look at that. It looks like he's staying, and we look at what Watford might need to do this window. Mine with breaking news that you can see on the bottom of your screen, and that is that Ashley Young has turned down Manchester United's offer of a one-year contract extension. He's only got 6 months left on his current one. That is according to Sky in Italy. We've had some tweets coming in. Dan says, I'm a United fan. It's silly trying to get Young to stay by offering him a contract extension. He clearly doesn't want to play for us anymore, and I don't blame him. We've got... Luke here, who says Ashley Young gets a load of unfair stick from Manchester United fans. He's a great pro, never lets us down, and is very experienced. Would be a mistake to let him go. Kian says, I'm happy Young's turned down a contract extension. I think he doesn't fit into Ollie's style of play and what he wants to do with the club. And Daniel Rees is not upset by that at all. Hopefully Phil Jones next out the door. And Chris Smalling to return, please, says Daniel. So keep your tweets coming in. Hashtag transfer talk, because we want to hear from you all the way through. But now it's time for West Ham fans, because this has changed so much, this deal. Bringing the latest on West Ham's pursuit of Gedson Fernandes. It was one of the first stories we brought you on Friday when the show started. We told you that West Ham had made a revised offer for him last night. Now, in the last hour, there has been an update, OK? We told you that they and Chelsea had both offered an 18-month loan. Chelsea's was an obligation to buy at £55 million if he played in 50% of the games. West Ham's was £33 million obligation to buy, but he had to play in fewer games. Well, now, the revised offer is an 18-month straight loan from West Ham to Benfica, no option or obligation to buy, all right? The Benfica board are currently meeting to discuss this transfer business. Right, Dave, what I'm thinking there is... I know, it's a lot to take in. What I'm thinking there is Benfica are going, right, we know this player could be absolutely class, right? If he does well in that 18 months, £33 million might not be enough. So let's take that out, right? Does that make sense for West Ham, though?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? Look, there's no doubt, from Benfica's point of view, they are protecting the value of the player, and they believe that he will get more first-team opportunities at West Ham than he perhaps would at Chelsea and at Stamford Bridge. That's the Benfica point of view. From the other side of it, we had the same conversation with Dani Ceballos, didn't we, in the summer, about there not being an option or taking a player for a straight loan without an option or an obligation to buy, and essentially the club is then raising the value of somebody else's player. The other side of it could be, well, he's only young, I think he's 20 years of age, and he may fill the quota of games within the first 6 to 9 months, play the required number of games that would have been within the option, and then there's lots of variables with players, particularly when they're young. Things might happen to them off the field, on the field, injuries, and they may never get up to the value that be worth the value that was the option in the first place. So he could have a terrific first 6 to 9 months, and then his value drop if he's either injured or not given enough game time at West Ham. That's the only other side of it that I can think of. But initially, on the face of it, a straight loan doesn't perhaps make that much sense. I know you'd have seen with Dani Ceballos how that can affect a player, that he knows that he's going back to his parent club. You know, Dani Ceballos in the summer said that he was confident that he could get back into Zinedine Zidane's plan. So are you getting the full mentality, the full player?
He's effectively on trial, isn't he? That's what he's going there to be on trial for West Ham, and fingers crossed it works out for them. They need a midfielder. It's just Declan Rice and Noble, really, in that centre, and he can come in and do well. I just don't understand why Benfica are so quick to get rid of him. He's young, he's still good. Obviously, he doesn't get much playing time for them, I understand it, but sell him. I still understand it.
Yeah, Ade, I've got to admit, I agree with you. I think that Benfica, Emma, that 18-month loan, with that obligation to buy, it means that they can still track his progress, but there could be, guaranteed money coming in. And I don't think it makes sense to either club. I know I made an argument there for how it could work for Benfica. I think this doesn't work for either of them.
Yeah, I know. We spoke about it on Good Morning Transfers, didn't we? Just the promise, the excitement around this player. And obviously the idea from West Ham signing him permanently was the fact that, on this loan deal, was the fact that, it was more something as well for the future that they had the option to buy him. So it was more down the line, 5 years, 10 years time, and what he could offer in the future. You know, we spoke this morning about the kind of youth setup at Benfica and how they have incredible talent coming through. Bernardo Silva, João Cancelo, João Felix, you know, these incredible Portuguese talents coming through. And no doubt this player can be that, but like you said, it doesn't really add up for either side at the moment.
Well, what did you make, Nicole, then, when Arsenal did sign Dani Ceballos? What Dave was saying there, with no option to buy a club as big as Arsenal, with the ambitions of Arsenal, to just develop someone else's player. What did you think, and what do you think now? Has it changed?
Well, I think it's a bit of a strange one, isn't it? Because that's what it comes down to, is you are developing someone else's player. So really, it's very short-sighted, isn't it? And Dani Ceballos, I mean, good player, but I think that is the issue of, you know, you want someone there long term, and you want to know that you have the option, well, that they can be there and be in the team and be more dedicated, I think, in a way. If they know that they're going back or going elsewhere, how invested are they potentially going to be at that club at the time?
Yeah, and you're probably more likely to develop Willock, aren't you, who is your own player. Right, OK, we'll move away from Fernandes there, but any further options? And there seem to be every hour, by the way. We'll keep bringing them to you. But now I think Dave's making his way to the Sky Pad. What are you talking about over there, Dave?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the top of the Premier League in the programme so far, but we can focus a little bit towards the bottom end of the Premier League, and it is certainly a big January for Watford at the moment. Remember, they were bottom of the division a month ago and had already changed their managers. They looked certain for relegation. That was until Nigel Pearson arrived. Just one defeat so far under the new manager, and that was at Liverpool. They've beaten Manchester United, Aston Villa and Wolves to move off the bottom. Now, key time for the manager, because this is Nigel Pearson's first transfer window in charge. You might think because they're struggling against relegation, he might fancy some wholesale changes, but that may not be the case. The manager prefers a tight-knit group, and it's thought the owners do have faith in the squad that is already there. The main business we expect is at the back. Now, Watford want to recruit a left-back. Remember, Danny Rose was at the Watford training ground on deadline day last summer, and it never happened. Maybe a central defender as well if the right player becomes available. Watford have scored the fewest goals out of anyone in the Premier League this season, but actually there's not too much concern about signing a player to boost those numbers. Troy Deeney is now back fit. João Pedro has come in as a new signing from Brazil, a highly rated young player. There'll be a little bit of pressure probably on him coming in, but you would expect people within the Watford setup to give him a little bit of time to settle in, really. Yeah, a player of such a young age.
Yeah, and Dave, if Nigel Pearson is looking to strengthen his defence, Emma, does that mean he's happy with his attacking options?
Well, he's got the attack firing, hasn't he? And you mentioned kind of their lack of goals there, but 7 league goals they'd scored before Nigel Pearson came in. In the past 4 league games since he has come in the Premier League, they have already scored more goals than that. So I think he's probably pretty happy at the moment. He's spoken about Gerard Deulofeu before when he came into the club, and he said he wants that player to know how valued he is. We know how good Gerard Deulofeu is, but he's clearly a big fan of him, and we saw him play against Liverpool recently. Yeah, they lost, but Gerard Deulofeu caused them all sorts of problems. Ismaila Sarr seems like he's settled now since joining the club in the summer. Troy Deeney, you mentioned, he's back from injury. And another plus as well, Danny Welbeck's back in training, so he should be back soon as well. You know, if he can stay injury-free, could be a big player for them.
Ade, when Nigel Pearson kept Leicester up in 2014-15, it was an amazing achievement because they were down, all right? Yeah. What was his defensive record like then?
Phenomenal, especially towards the end of the season. The last 7 games, and like you say, it was the great escape. A lot of people thought they were going to get relegated. The last 7 games, they only conceded 2 goals, which is remarkable. Wow. And they were actually safe a game before the end of the season. So, remarkable season. They did have Robert Huth. Obviously, big Robert Huth came from Stoke, which was the big move for them. Matthew Upson came in from Brighton as well, so they kind of shored up that back line. But defensively, we know what Nigel Pearson can do. Even in the game so far that he's been there with Watford, good play against Liverpool. They didn't win that game, but done well. They beat United, beat Villa, drew with Sheffield United as well. So it's been a good season for him so far, and I expect him defensively to get it right. And we know what they can do going forward, the likes of Deulofeu and Troy Deeney.
The only problem is you know, we saw how poor they were, how much they struggled without Troy Deeney. When you're relying that heavily on one player, if he gets another knock and if he's out again, because that's the thing, we're saying that they're only focusing then on their defence. But then if Troy Deeney suffers another injury, I think they'll have massive problems again, because he's such a key part of their squad, as we saw with their poor form.
That's just the risk you take. I mean, everyone's like that in the Premier League, really. We're seeing Tottenham with Harry Kane out right now. Imagine Liverpool with Van Dijk out.
Yeah.
Everyone's got that key player that if they do get injured, there's going to be problems. But I think he's got enough other attacking options. We've seen Deulofeu now, the way he's come on since Nigel Pearson's arrived.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think they'll be OK going forward.
Ade, one of the worst nightmares on your debut on Transfer Talk is your laptop running out. That's exactly what's happened
I
to
gave you
you.
the look and I tried to pretend it hasn't happened.
I couldn't tell, to be fair, couldn't tell at all.
What can we do?
It's just a pointless prop
wouldn't know, would
now,
you?
a little bit
The
like my
stats are
Transfer
in there,
Talk mug, which
Tom,
has
the
nothing
stats
in,
are
and
in
it
there.
never, ever does. Right, OK. We'll get that charged up in the break, all right? You'll have about 3 minutes of charge, right?
I need it.
Bayern Munich sporting director. We're going to move on to Leroy Sané now, because sporting director Hassan Salihamidzic has confirmed that Bayern Munich have ruled out a move for Manchester City winger Leroy Sané in this transfer window. All right, Ade, you don't need your laptop for this.
No, I don't.
Okay?
No.
This is definitely great news.
No, I don't need it.
It's great news for Manchester City, isn't it?
It is, but I mean, you wonder if Bayern Munich have just ruled him out because he's injured. I mean, he's got an ACL injury. Will they come in again for him in the summer? Probably, if we're honest. But you forget, with Man City's season, a lot of people have spoken about defensive issues. Obviously, they've lost Laporte. We know that he's going to be back soon. But Sané's been a massive loss for them as well. Always got goals in those last 3 seasons. I don't have his stats of goals because my laptop has gone, but always got goals for them every single season. So he's been a big miss. But going forward, I think Bayern Munich will probably come in again for him in the summer. But right now in January, it doesn't make sense to sign an injured player with an ACL injury.
I'm
But
going
why
to
would
give you
you?
my iPad.
Thank you very much.
So kind.
A Transfer Talk gift to
There you go.
Well,
Yeah,
even
much
if-
appreciated.
Have they missed him that much, Dave? Because with Manchester City, it's not really that area that's been a problem for them this season, even though they've been missing who is one of the best wingers in the world.
Yes, but they have had injuries, haven't they? You know, Sergio Aguero's been out for a time as well in that forward area. And you know, Guardiola played with, what was it, 4 false nines the other night against Manchester United. So I don't think you would have to miss a player of Leroy Sané's quality. There's no doubt about that. And I think Pep Guardiola really likes him as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, but they've got such a good squad, and their squad depth at Manchester City is incredible. It's brilliant. Defensively is, of course, where they have really suffered. I mean, Sané is a fantastic player, so they obviously have missed him to a certain degree, but I think someone like Laporte is, you know, and also they didn't really replace company. It is a big issue that they had and have, and I think it will be interesting. Do you guys think, I mean, obviously I'm not the one in the know, do we think they're going to try and do anything defensively in this?
Well, Pep Guardiola has said all along no.
Okay,
He said all along no. But we've all said, haven't we? We've all said so far that, you know, that doesn't make that much sense to us. But he's always
Fernandinho's done a
said
great
no.
job there, isn't he, though?
He
He's slotted into that position.
Yeah.
The
Done so
youngsters,
well.
they've got the youngsters who they can make better.
Yeah.
We've all said that obviously you know City would miss Leroy Sané, but we've got with and without here Leroy Sané, they've played with him 89 times, without him 43, and actually their points per game is very similar.
I had that stat on my laptop.
Was it?
I'm serious, I had that stat on my laptop.
I wasn't going to do that stat, but I brought it out just to spite it. Just to spite it.
Right, OK, I tell you what, we're going to be back after the break, but just before that, there is some more news from Manchester United. Oh, it's just there now on the bottom of your screen. They've recalled left-back Cameron Borthwick-Jackson from his loan with Tranmere. Do you put 2 and 2 together? Ashley Young going, he replaced him. I wouldn't say so, because only 3 League One appearances for Tranmere so far. His other 2 appearances have been in the Football League Trophy, 1 against Aston Villa under-21s and 1 against Salford. So maybe it's because he hasn't been playing enough at Tranmere is why he's been recalled to Manchester United. Plenty more from Nicole and Arsenal next, and who could they move for in January? every hour. Well, in fact, it was only about 15 minutes ago. And we've got an update right now because West Ham United have agreed a deal in principle to sign him, the Benfica midfielder Gedson Fernandes. The deal is, as we were saying earlier, it's an 18-month loan, no option or obligation to buy. It's just a straight year-and-a-half loan for Gedson Fernandes from Benfica to West Ham. That deal is agreed in principle, so this one should move from here fairly quickly.
Oh, we love a bit of breaking news, but we're still here doing the Influencing You feature. Myself, Nicole at the Skypad. I know we talked about the incomings, Nicole at Arsenal, but let's dive into those outgoings, potential outgoings.
Yeah.
You as a fan, you as an influencer, what are you seeing potential departures this January for Arsenal?
Ooh, I think probably Mustafi, Shkodran Mustafi.
Okay.
You would think so. I mean, he's not been playing that much. I think he kind of knows how Arsenal fans view him.
Give us the fan consensus. What is it about it?
I mean, I don't think fans think he's great, if I'm going to be honest.
Okay,
You're allowed to harsh.
your opinion.
Shkodran, if you're watching, I apologise. But I mean, look, he can be sloppy. He's made quite a lot of mistakes. I just don't think he is good enough for Arsenal, if I'm being really honest. And I think that is the general view of fans. There's always, you know, when they announce the lineup on social media before a game, and people are quite brutal, and you know, there's been a lot of talk about Mustafi, but I think he knows where he stands within the team, and I think he'll want to leave, but I don't know where he'd go. I can't imagine it would be a massive price tag.
Okay, talking about fans being brutal.
Yeah.
Arsenal fans actually quite like Mesut Ozil, but everybody else seems to have quite a negative view. Now, you as an Arsenal fan, but you as a football fan in general, do you feel like maybe it's time for Mesut Ozil to depart away from Arsenal at all? See, I see the smile on your face.
I do not.
I see the smile on your face.
No, okay.
They're loyal to their German, aren't they? They love him.
Well, do you know what? Yes and no, because actually, I think fans are just quite brutal, aren't they, really? And if you're not performing well, you're not doing very well, fans will call you out on it on Twitter, on social media. And Ozil, when we all know when he wants to be and when he is in form, he is brilliant. He is fantastic. Some of his assists, he can be absolutely phenomenal, but sometimes he's accused of being lazy. And, you know, the difference that we've seen...
Mixed reviews, depends on how you look at it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, he's very talented. You know what he's capable of, but sometimes you don't see it, and he can go missing in games. We've all seen it before as Arsenal fans. But since Arteta came in, he has been so good. The amount that he's been tracking back as well, the distance that he's been running in comparison to previously is brilliant. And he looks quite different, and he's full of confidence. And I think the same can be said actually for quite a lot of players now under Arteta. I do think when Unai Emery was in, we know that there was something with him and Mesut Ozil. It clearly, you know, he clearly wasn't either not a big fan of his or was just trying to prove a point maybe. But I think right now, no, we need to keep hold of Mesut Ozil. I think he's brilliant. He's great for Arsenal. He can't go. He's not going.
Another player looks like you're going to keep hold of is Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Obviously, he made those quotations in the recent brochure. So, look, you did very well. I'm impressed, man. I'm impressed. I am. I'm happy for you, man. You really know your club inside out.
No, but as an Arsenal, do you know why? Because it's nice to come and be able to talk about Arsenal in a positive way. Because this season, up until the past sort of 3-4 weeks, hasn't been great. As an Arsenal fan, it's been quite horrible, really, at points. So right now, it's actually a lovely time to be an Arsenal fan. Aubameyang making those comments in that programme, saying that, you know, all this talk that's going on, but I'm captain, I'm here, I'm staying here. I loved it. Great. I think, you know, he's making a point, clearly, a very clear point of saying, I'm not going anywhere.
Captain Marvel.
You can hear anything, all these rumours, but I'm staying put. And you want to see that from your captain as well. And he looks happier. Again, you see him tracking back loads at the moment. It's great at the moment. I love it.
You've done well. I like that. You've done well. Good luck, man, for the season.
Thanks.
All right, Nicole, you can come and sit back down. We've got a few more questions for you. And JD, this, yes, is the Transfer Talk brochure.
I didn't know. I didn't know. I'm still got the American lingo.
I assume you meant programme.
Sure.
Yeah, well, you've just been talking about Arsenal defence again. Emma, you had a question for Nicole, didn't
You're
you?
talking about Aubameyang there.
Yeah.
Would you have Olivier Giroud back at Arsenal? Because we're talking about him loads.
Ooh,
I've never really understood why fans seem critical of this player who scored over 100 goals.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've got Aubameyang, you've got Lacazette. Incredible. Not much better kind of strike combos in the world when they're on their game and fit.
Would I
Giroud, if you need cover.
Would I take him back? Yeah, do you know what? I'm not even bitter about when he left. I think
He wants to
actually...
stay in London.
Yeah, well, I think everyone kind of understood as well. And, you know, I do think he is a good player, but do I think... Would he ever
You've got a lot of games coming up,
He
Europa
wouldn't-
League.
I know,
Top scorer in Europa League last season.
Yeah, would he want to come to somewhere where, again, he's just going to really be on the bench or be playing, you know, the games that he doesn't really want to be playing in. He wants to, I'm sure he wants to be starting, he wants to be getting that game time. I mean, I'd take him if he was going and the price tag was decent, you know. You would take him back, I think, as an Arsenal fan. You know that he can score goals.
Reliable.
I mean, I still love him for the scorpion kick. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Stunner. Yeah, so, you know, he's a great player, but I don't think he'd ever come back, and I don't think there'd really be actually a place for him.
Oh, well, Fidel Baptista, an Arsenal fan on Twitter, quite simply says, bring Giroud back with 4 exclamation marks. A little bit of news from Arsenal to bring you. We might not have time to actually discuss this, Nicole, but their winger, Emile Smith-Rowe, looks set to join Huddersfield on loan later today. As you'll know, he's 19 years old, 6 first appearances this season. But head coach Mikel Arteta wants the club's young talents to get more game time. That means he will go out on loan to Huddersfield. Always been very impressed with him when I've seen him. Same with Reece Nelson as well on the wings. Nicole, great to speak to you. Thanks very much for coming in. JD as well, thank you. Eddie? Ade?
Ade's close, it's close. Ade's a bit better.
Ade, just like James this morning, excellent debut. Well done. Emma, Dave, thank you as ever. OK.
Done.
That was pointless. Right, good morning, Transfers. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. as usual. And Transfer Talk is back from midday. And tonight, Dharma Chef and Carve Solical Transfer Show, 7 p.m. tonight. Coming up on Sky Sports News, much more transfer news, especially from West Ham and Jedson Fernandez.